Chapter 6. I walk inside and lie on the bare mattress in my room. The morning has worn me out and I let my eyes close. When I reopen them, the sun is lifted over the tops of the trees. I walk out of the room. Henry is at the kitchen table with his laptop open, and I know he's been scanning the news, as he always does, searching for information or stories that might tell us where the others are. "Did you sleep?" I ask. "Not much. We have internet now and I haven't checked the news since Florida. It was gnawing at me." "Anything to report?" I ask. He shrugs. A 14-year-old in Africa fell from a fourth-story window and walked away without a scratch. There is a 15-year-old in Bangladesh claiming to be the Messiah. I laugh. I know the 15-year-old isn't us. Any chance of the other? Nah. Surviving a 4-story drop is no great feat, and besides, if it was one of us they wouldn't have been that careless in the first place, he says, and winks. I smile and sit across from him. He closes his computer and places his hands on the table. His watch reads 11:36. We've been in Ohio for slightly over half a day and already this much has happened. I hold my palms up. They've dimmed since the last time I looked. "Do you know what you have?" he asks. "Lights in my hands." He chuckles. "It's called Lumen. You'll be able to control the light in time." I sure hope so, because our cover is blown if they don't turn off soon. I still don't see what the point is, though. There's more to Lumen than mere lights. I promise you. What's the rest? He walks into his bedroom and returns with a lighter in his hand. "Do you remember much of your grandparents?" he asks. "Our grandparents are the ones who raise us. We see little of our parents until we reach the age of 25, when we have children of our own. The life expectancy for the Lorien is around 200 years, much longer than that of humans, and when children are born, between the parents' ages of 25 and 35, the elders are the ones who raise them while the parents continue honing their legacies." "A little. Why?" "Because your grandfather had the same gift." "I don't remember his hands ever glowing," I say. Henry shrugs. "He might never have had reason to use it." "Wonderful," I say. "Sounds like a great gift to have, one I'll never use." He shakes his head. "Give me your hand." I give him the right one and he flicks the lighter on, then moves it to touch the tip of my finger with the flame. I jerk my hand away. "What are you doing?" "Trust me," he says. I give my hand back to him. He takes hold of it and flicks the lighter on again. He looks into my eyes. Then he smiles. I look down and see that he is holding the flame over the tip of my middle finger. I don't feel a thing. Instinct causes me to jerk my hand free anyway. I rub my finger. It feels no different than it did before. "Did you feel that?" he asks. "No." "Give it back," he says. "And tell me when you do feel something." He starts at my fingertip again, then moves the flame very slowly up the back of my hand. There is a slight tickle where the flame touches the skin, nothing more. Only when the fire reaches my wrist do I begin to sense the burn. I pull my arm free. "Ouch." "Lumen," he says. "You're going to become resistant to fire and heat. Your hands come naturally, but we'll have to train the rest of your body." A smile spreads across my face. "Resistant to fire and heat," I say. "So I'll never be burned again?" "Eventually, yes." "That's awesome. Not such a bad legacy after all, huh?" "Not bad at all," I agree. "Now what about these lights? Are they ever going to turn off?" "They will. Probably after a good night's sleep, when your mind forgets they're on," he says. "But you'll have to be careful not to get worked up for a while. An emotional imbalance will cause them to come right back on again, if you get overly nervous, or angry, or sad." "For how long?" "Until you learn to control them." He closes his eyes and rubs his face with his hands. "Anyway, I'm going to try to sleep again. We'll talk about your training in a few hours. After he leaves, I stay at the kitchen table, opening and closing my hands, taking deep breaths and trying to calm everything inside of me so the lights will dim. Of course it doesn't work. Everything in the house is still a mess aside from the few things Henri did while I was at school. I can tell that he is leaning towards leaving, but not to the point that he couldn't be persuaded to stay. Maybe if he wakes and finds the house clean and in order, it'll tip him in the right direction. I start with my room. I dust, wash the windows, sweep the floor. When everything is clean, I throw sheets, pillows, and blankets on the bed, then hang and fold my clothes. The dresser is old and rickety, but I fill it and then place the few books I own on top of it. And just like that, a clean room, everything I own put away and in order. I move to the kitchen, putting away dishes and wiping down the counters. It gives me something to do and takes my mind off of my hands, even though while cleaning I think about Mark James. For the first time in my life I stood up to somebody. I've always wanted to but never did because I wanted to heed Henry's advice to keep a low profile. I've always tried to delay another move for as long as I could. But today was different. There was something very satisfying about being pushed by somebody and responding by pushing back. And then there's the issue of my phone, which was stolen. Sure, we could easily get a new one, but where is the justice in that? Chapter 7. I wake before the alarm. The house is cool and silent. I lift my hands from under the covers. They are normal, no lights, no glow. I lumber out of bed and into the living room. Henry is at the kitchen table reading the local paper and drinking coffee. "Good morning," he says. "How do you feel?" "Like $1,000,000, I say. I pour myself a bowl of cereal and sit across from him. "What are you going to do today?" I ask. "Errands mostly. We're getting low on money. I'm thinking of putting in a transfer at the bank." Lorien is, or was, depending on how you look at it, a planet rich with natural resources. Some of those resources were precious gems and metals. When we left, each Sipan was given a sack full of diamonds, emeralds and rubies to sell when we arrived on Earth. Henry did, and then deposited the money into an overseas bank account. I don't know how much there is and I never ask. But I know it's enough to last us 10 lifetimes, if not more. Henry makes withdrawals from it once a year, give or take. I don't know, though, he continues. I don't want to stray too far in case something else happens today. Not wanting to make a big deal of yesterday, I wave the notion away. I'll be fine. Go get paid. I look out the window. Dawn is breaking, casting a pale light over everything. The truck is covered with dew. It's been a while since we've been through a winter. I don't even own a jacket and have outgrown most of my sweaters. It looks cold out, I say. Maybe we can go clothes shopping soon. He nods. I was thinking about that last night, which is why I need to go to the bank. Then go, I say. Nothing is going to happen today. I finish the bowl of cereal, drop the dirty dish into the sink, and jump into the shower. 10 minutes later I'm dressed in a pair of jeans and a black thermal shirt, the sleeves pulled to my elbows. I look in the mirror, and down at my hands. I feel calm. I need to stay that way. On the way to school Henri hands me a pair of gloves. "Make sure you keep these with you at all times. You never know." I tuck them into my back pocket. I shouldn't need them. I feel pretty good. At the school, buses are lined up in front. Henry pulls up to the side of the building. "I don't like you not having a phone," he says. "Any number of things could go wrong." "Don't worry. I'll have it back soon." He sighs and shakes his head. "Don't do anything stupid. I'll be right here at the end of the day." "I won't," I say, and get out of the truck. He pulls away. Inside, The halls are bustling with activity, students loitering at lockers, talking, laughing. A few look at me and whisper. I don't know whether it's because of the confrontation or because of the dark room. It's likely that they are whispering about both. It is a small school, and in small schools there is little that isn't readily known by everyone else. When I reach the main entrance, I turn right and find my locker. It's empty. I have 15 minutes before sophomore composition begins. I walk by the classroom just to make sure I know where it is and then head to the office. The secretary smiles when I enter. Hi, I say. I lost my phone yesterday and I was wondering if anyone turned it into lost and found? She shakes her head. No, I'm afraid no phone's been turned in. Thank you, I say. Out in the hallway I don't see Mark anywhere. I pick a direction and begin walking. People still stare and whisper, but that doesn't bother me. I see him 50 feet ahead of me. All at once the thrill of adrenaline kicks in. I look down at my hands. They're normal. I'm worried about them turning on, and that worry might just be the thing that does it. Mark's leaning against a locker with his arms crossed, in the middle of a group, 5 guys and 2 girls, all of them talking and laughing. Sarah is sitting on a windowsill about 15 feet away. She looks radiant again today with her blonde hair pulled into a ponytail, wearing a skirt and a grey sweater. She's reading a book, but looks up as I walk towards them. I stop just outside of the group, stare at Mark, and wait. He notices me after about 5 seconds. What do you want? He asks. You know what I want. Our eyes stay locked. The crowd around us swells to 10 people, then 20. Sarah stands and walks to the edge of the crowd. Mark is wearing his Letterman jacket, and his black hair is carefully styled to look like he rolled straight out of bed and into his clothes. He pushes away from the locker and walks towards me. When he is inches away he stops. Our chests nearly touch and the spicy scent of his cologne fills my nostrils. He is probably 6'1", a couple inches taller than I am. We have the same build. Little does he know that what is inside of me is not what is inside of him. I am quicker than he is and far stronger. The thought brings a confident grin to my face. You think you can stay in school a little longer today? Or are you going to run off again like a little bitch? Snickers spread through the crowd. I guess we'll see, won't we? Yeah, I guess we will, he says, and moves even closer. I want my phone back, I say. I don't have your phone. I shake my head at him. There are 2 people who saw you take it, I lie. By the way his brows crinkle I know I have guessed correctly. Yeah, and what if it was me? What are you going to do? There are probably 30 people around us now. I have no doubt that the entire school will know what has happened within 10 minutes of the start of first period. You've been warned, I say. You have till the end of the day. I turn and leave. What? He yells behind me. I don't acknowledge it. Let him dwell on the answer. My fists have been clenched and I realize I had mistaken adrenaline for nerves. Why was I so nervous? The unpredictability. The fact that this is the first time I've confronted somebody? The possibility of my hands glowing? Probably all 3. I go to the bathroom, enter an empty stall, and latch the door behind me. I open my hands. A slight glow in the right one. I close my eyes and sigh, focus on breathing slowly. A minute later the glow is still there. I shake my head. I didn't think the legacy would be that sensitive. I stay in the stall. A thin layer of sweat covers my forehead. Both of my hands are warm, but thankfully the left is still normal. People filter in and out of the bathroom and I stay in the stall, waiting. The light stays on. Finally the first period bell rings and the bathroom is empty. I shake my head in disgust and accept the inevitable. I don't have my phone and Henry is on his way to the bank. I'm alone with my own stupidity and I have no one to blame but myself. I pull the gloves from my back pocket and slip them on. Leather gardening gloves. I couldn't look more foolish if I were wearing clown shoes with yellow pants. So much for blending in. I realize I have to stop with Mark. He wins. He can keep my phone, Henry, and I will get a new one tonight. I leave the bathroom and walk the empty hallway to my classroom. Everybody stares at me when I enter, then at the gloves. There is no point trying to hide them. I look like a fool. I am an alien. I have extraordinary powers, with more to come, and I can do things that no human would dream of, but I still look like a fool. I sit in the center of the room. Nobody says anything to me and I'm too flustered to hear what the teacher says. When the bell rings I gather my things, drop them into my bag, and pull the straps over my shoulder. I'm still wearing the gloves. When I exit the room I lift the cuff of the right one and peek at my palm. It's still glowing. I walk the hall at a steady pace. Slow breathing. I try to clear my mind but it isn't working. When I enter the classroom Mark is sitting in the same spot as the day before, Sarah beside him. He sneers at me. Trying to act cool, he doesn't notice the gloves. "What's up, runner? I heard the cross-country team is looking for new members." "Don't be such a dick," Sarah says to him. I look at her as I pass, into her blue eyes that make me feel shy and self-conscious, that make my cheeks warm. The seat I sat in the day before is occupied, so I head to the very back. The class fills and the kid from yesterday, the one who warned me about Mark, sits next to me. He's wearing another black t-shirt with a NASA logo in the center, army pants, and a pair of Nike tennis shoes. He has disheveled, sandy blonde hair, and his hazel eyes are magnified by his glasses. He pulls out a notepad filled with diagrams of constellations and planets. He looks at me and doesn't try to hide the fact that he is staring. "How goes it?" I ask. He shrugs. "Why are you wearing gloves?" I open my mouth to answer, but Mrs. Burton starts the class. During most of it the guy beside me draws pictures that seem to be his interpretation of what Martians look like. Small bodies, big heads, hands, and eyes. The same stereotypical representations that are usually shown in movies. At the bottom of every drawing he writes his name in small letters, "Some good." He notices me watching, and I look away. As Mrs. Burton lectures on Saturn's 61 moons, I look at the back of Mark's head. He's hunched over his desk, writing. Then he sits up and passes a note to Sarah. She flicks it back at him without reading it. It makes me smile. Mrs. Burton turns off the lights and starts a video. The rotating planets being projected on the screen at the front of the class make me think of Lorien. It is one of the 18 life-sustaining planets in the universe. Earth is another. Mogador, unfortunately, is another. Lorien. I close my eyes and allow myself to remember. An old planet, 100 times older than Earth. Every problem that Earth now has, pollution, overpopulation, global warming, food shortages, Lorien also had. At one point, 25,000 years ago, the planet began to die. This was long before the ability to travel through the universe, and the people of Lorien had to do something in order to survive. Slowly but surely they made a commitment to ensure that the planet would forever remain self-sustaining by changing their way of life, doing away with everything harmful, guns and bombs, poisonous chemicals, pollutants, and over time the damage began to reverse itself. With the benefit of evolution, over thousands of years, certain citizens, the Guard, developed powers in order to protect the planet, and to help it. It was as though Lorien rewarded my ancestors for their foresight, for their respect. Mrs. Burton flicks the lights on. I open my eyes and look at the clock. Class is almost over. I feel calm again, and had completely forgotten about my hands. I take a deep breath and flip open the cuff of the right glove. The light is off. I smile and remove both gloves. Back to normal. I have 6 periods left in the day. I have to remain at peace through all of them. The first half of the day passes without incident. I remain calm, and likewise have no further encounters with Mark. At lunch I fill my tray with the basics, then find an empty table at the back of the room. When I'm halfway through a slice of pizza, Sam Good, the kid from astronomy class, sits across from me. "Are you really fighting Mark after school?" he asks. I shake my head. "No. That's what people are saying." "They're wrong." He shrugs, keeps eating. A minute later he asks, "Where'd your gloves go?" "I took them off. My hands aren't cold anymore." He opens his mouth to respond, but a giant meatball that I'm sure is aimed for me comes out of nowhere and hits him in the back of the head. His hair and shoulders are covered with bits of meat and spaghetti sauce. Some of it has splattered onto me. While I start cleaning myself off, a second meatball flies through the air and hits me square on the cheek. Ooze filter throughout the cafeteria. I stand and wipe the side of my face with a napkin, anger coursing through me. In that instant I don't care about my hands. They can shine as brightly as the sun, and Henry and I can leave this afternoon if that's what it comes to. But there isn't a chance in hell I'm letting this slide. It was over after this morning, but not now. "Don't," Sam says. "If you fight then they'll never leave you alone." I start walking. A hush falls over the cafeteria. 100 sets of eyes focus on me. My face twists into a scowl. 7 people are sitting at Mark James's table, all guys. All 7 of them stand as I approach. "You got a problem?" one of them asks me. He is big, built like an offensive lineman. Patches of reddish hair grow on his cheeks and chin as though he's trying to grow a beard. It makes his face look dirty. Like the rest of them, he's wearing a Letterman jacket. He crosses his arms and stands in my way. "This doesn't concern you," I say. "You'll have to go through me to get to him." "I will if you don't get out of my way." "I don't think you can," he says. I bring my knee straight up into his crotch. His breath catches in his throat, and he doubles over. The whole lunchroom gasps. "I warned you," I say, and I step over him and walk straight for Mark. Just as I reach him I'm grabbed from behind. I turn with my hands clenched into fists, ready to swing, but at the last second I realize it's the lunchroom attendant. "That'll be enough, boys. Look what he just did to Kevin, Mr. Johnson," Mark says. Kevin is still on the ground holding himself. His face is beet red. "Send him to the principal." "Shut up, James. All 4 of you are going." "Don't think I didn't see you throw those meatballs," he says, and looks at Kevin still on the floor. "Get up." Sam appears from nowhere. He has tried to wipe the mess from his hair and shoulders. The big pieces are gone, but the sauce has only smeared. I'm not sure why he's here. I look down at my hands, ready to flee at the first hint of light, but to my surprise they're off. Was it because of the urgency of the situation, allowing me to approach without preemptive nerves? I don't know. Kevin stands and looks at me. He is shaky, still having trouble breathing. He grips the shoulder of the guy beside him for support. "You'll get yours," he says. "I doubt it," I say. I'm still scowling, still covered in food. To hell with wiping it away. The 4 of us walk to the principal's office. Mr. Harris is sitting behind his desk eating a microwavable lunch, a napkin tucked into the neck of his shirt. "Sorry to interrupt. We just had a slight disruption during lunch. I'm sure these boys will be happy to explain," the lunchroom attendant says. Mr. Harris sighs, pulls the napkin from his shirt, and throws it in the trash. He pushes his lunch to the side of his desk with the back of his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson." Mr. Johnson leaves, closing the office door behind him, and the 4 of us sit. "So who wants to start?" the principal asks, irritation in his voice. I stay silent. The muscles in Mr. Harris's jaw are flexed. I look down at my hands. Still off. I place them palms down on my jeans just in case. After 10 seconds of silence, Mark starts. Somebody hit him with a meatball. He thinks it was me, so he need Kevin in the balls. Watch your language, Mr. Harris says, and then turns to Kevin. You okay? Kevin, whose face is still red, nods. So who threw the meatball? Mr. Harris asks me. I say nothing, still seething, irritated at the whole scene. I take a deep breath to try to calm myself. I don't know, I say. My anger has reached new levels. I don't want to have to deal with Mark through Mr. Harris, and would rather take care of the situation myself, away from the principal's office. Sam looks at me in surprise. Mr. Harris throws his hands up in frustration. Well then, why in the hell are you boys here? That's a good question, says Mark. We were simply eating our lunch. Sam speaks. Mark threw it. I saw him and so did Mr. Johnson. I look over at Sam. I know he didn't see it because his back was turned the first time, and the second time he was busy cleaning himself off. But I'm impressed at him saying so, for his taking my side knowing it will put him in danger with Mark and his friends. Mark scowls at him. Come on, Mr. Harris, Mark pleads. I have the interview with the Gazette tomorrow, and the game on Friday. I don't have time to worry about crap like this. I'm being accused of something I didn't do. It's hard to stay focused with this shit going on. Watch your mouth. Mr. Harris yells. It's true. I believe you, the principal says, and sighs very heavily. He looks at Kevin, who's still struggling to catch his breath. Do you need to go to the nurse? I'll be fine, Kevin says. Mr. Harris nods. You two forget about the lunchroom incident, and Mark, get your mind straight. We've been trying to get this article for a while now. They might even put us on the front page. Imagine that, the front page of the Gazette, he says, and smiles. Thank you, Mark says. I'm excited about it. Good. Now, you two can leave. They go, and Mr. Harris gives a hard look at Sam. Sam holds his gaze. Tell me, Sam. And I want the truth. Did you see Mark throw the meatball? Sam's eyes narrow. He doesn't look away. Yes. The principal shakes his head. I don't believe you, Sam. And because of that, here is what we are going to do. He looks at me. So a meatball was thrown. 2, Sam interjects. What? Mr. Harris asks, again glowering at Sam. There were 2 meatballs thrown, not 1. Mr. Harris slams his fist on the desk. Who cares how many there were? John, you assaulted Kevin. An eye for an eye. We'll let it go at that. Do you understand me? His face is red and I know it's pointless to argue. Yep, I say. I don't want to see you two in here again, he says. You're both dismissed. We leave his office. Why didn't you tell him about your phone? Sam asks. Because he doesn't care. He just wanted to go back to his lunch, I say. And be careful, I tell him. You'll be on Mark's radar now. I have home economics after lunch, not because I necessarily care about cooking, but because it was either that or choir. And while I have many strengths and powers that are considered exceptional on Earth, singing is not one of them. So I walk into home economics and take a seat. It is a small room, and just before the bell rings Sarah walks in and sits beside me. Hi, she says. Hi. Blood rushes to my face and my shoulders stiffen. I grab a pencil and begin to twirl it in my right hand while my left bends back the corners of my notepad. My heart is pounding. Please don't let my hands be glowing. I peek at my palm and breathe a sigh of relief that it's still normal. Stay calm, I think. She's just a girl. Sarah is looking at me. Everything inside of me feels as though it is turning to mush. She may be the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. I'm sorry Mark is being a jerk to you, she says. I shrug. It's not your fault. You guys aren't really going to fight, are you? I don't want to, I say. She nods. He can be a real dick. He always tries to show he's boss. It's a sign of insecurity, I say. He's not insecure. Just a dick. Sure he is. But I don't want to argue with Sarah. Besides, she speaks with such certainty that I almost doubt myself. She looks at the spots of spaghetti sauce that have dried on my shirt, then reaches over and pulls a hardened piece from my hair. Thanks, I say. She sighs. I'm sorry that happened. She looks me in the eye. We're not together, you know? No? She shakes her head. I'm intrigued that she felt the need to make that clear to me. After 10 minutes of instruction on how to make pancakes, none of which I actually hear, the teacher, Mrs. Benshoff, pairs Sarah and me together. We enter a door at the back of the room that leads to the kitchen, which is about 3 times the size of the actual classroom. It contains 10 different kitchen units, complete with refrigerators, cabinets, sinks, ovens. Sarah walks into one, grabs an apron from a drawer, and puts it on. Will you tie this for me? She asks. I pull too much on the bow and have to tie it again. I can feel the contours of her lower back beneath my fingers. When hers is tied, I put mine on and start to tie it myself. Here, silly, she says, and then takes the straps and does it for me. Thanks. I try cracking the first egg but do it too hard, and none of the egg actually makes it into the bowl. Sarah laughs. She places a new egg in my hand and takes my hand in hers and shows me how to crack it on the rim of the bowl. She leaves her hand on mine for a second longer than is necessary. She looks at me and smiles. Like that. She mixes the batter and strands of hair fall into her face while she works. I desperately want to reach over and tuck the loose strands behind her ear, but I don't. Mrs. Benshoff comes into our kitchen to check our progress. So far so good, which is all thanks to Sarah, since I have no idea what I'm doing. How do you like Ohio so far? Sarah asks. It's okay. I could have used a better first day of school. She smiles. What happened, anyway? I was worried about you. Would you believe it if I told you I was an alien? Shut up, she says playfully. What really happened? I laugh. I have really bad asthma. For some reason I had an attack yesterday, I say, and feel regret at having to lie. I don't want her to see weakness within me, especially weakness that is untrue. Well, I'm glad you feel better. We make 4 pancakes. Sarah stacks all of them onto one plate. She dumps an absurd amount of maple syrup over them and hands me a fork. I look at the other students. Most are eating off of 2 plates. I reach over and cut a bite. Not bad, I say while chewing. I'm not hungry in the least, but I help her eat all of them. We alternate bites until the plate is empty. I have a stomachache when we finish. After, she cleans the dishes and I dry them. When the bell rings, we walk out of the room together. You know, you're not so bad for a sophomore, she says, and nudges me. I don't care what they say. Thanks, and you're not so bad yourself, Ray, whatever you are. I'm a junior. We walk in silence for a few steps. You're not really going to fight Mark at the end of the day, are you? I need my phone back. Besides, look at me, I say, and motion to my shirt. She shrugs. I stop at my locker. She takes note of the number. Well, you shouldn't, she says. I don't want to. She rolls her eyes. Boys and their fights. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of the day, I say. After my 9th period class, American history, I take slow steps to my locker. I think of just leaving the school quietly, without looking for Mark. But then I realize I will forever be labeled a coward. I get to my locker and empty my bag of the books I don't need. Then I just stand there and feel the nervousness that begins to course through me. My hands are still normal. I think of throwing the gloves on as a precaution, but I don't. I take a deep breath and close the locker door. "Hi," I hear, the voice startling me. It's Sarah. She glances behind her, and looks back at me. "I have something for you." "It's not more pancakes, is it?" I still feel like I'm about to burst. She laughs nervously. "It's not pancakes. But if I give it to you, you have to promise me you won't fight." "Okay," I say. She looks behind her again and quickly reaches into the front pocket of her bag. She pulls out my phone and gives it to me. "How did you get this?" She shrugs. "Does Mark know?" "Nope." "So are you still going to be a tough guy?" she asks. "I guess not." "Good. Thank you," I say. I can't believe she went to such lengths to help me. She barely knows me. But I'm not complaining. "You're welcome," she says, then turns and rushes down the hall. I watch her the whole way, unable to stop smiling. When I head out, Mark James and 8 of his friends meet me in the lobby. Well, Mark says. "Actually made it through the day, huh?" "Sure did. And look what I found," I say, holding my phone up for him to see. His jaw drops. I pass by him, head down the hall and walk out of the building. End of chapter 7. Chapter 8. Henry is parked exactly where he said he would be. I jump in the truck, still smiling. "Good day?" he asks. "Not bad. Got my phone back?" "No fighting?" "Nothing major." He looks at me suspiciously. Do I even want to know what that means? Probably not. "Did your hands come on at all?" "No," I lie. "How was your day?" He follows the driveway around the school. "It was good. I drove an hour and a half to Columbus after dropping you off." "Why Columbus?" "Big banks there. I didn't want to draw suspicion by requesting a transfer for an amount of money larger than what is collectively contained within the entire town." I nod. Smart thinking. He pulls onto the road. "So are you going to tell me her name?" "Huh?" I ask. There has to be a reason for that ridiculous smile of yours. The most obvious reason is a girl. "How do you know?" "John, my friend, back on Lorien, this Olsipan was quite the ladies' man." "Get out of here," I say. "There is no such thing as a ladies' man on Lorien." He nods approvingly. "You've been paying attention. The Loric are a monogamous people. When we fall in love, it's for life. Marriage comes around the age of 25, give or take, and has nothing to do with law. It's based more on promise and commitment than anything else. Henry was married for 20 years before he left with me. 10 years have passed, but I know he still misses his wife every single day." "So who is she?" he asks. "Her name is Sarah Hart. She's the daughter of the real estate agent you got the house from. She's in 2 of my classes. She's a junior." He nods. "Pretty?" "Absolutely. And smart." "Yeah," he draws out slowly. "I've been expecting this for a long time now. Just keep in mind that we might have to leave at a moment's notice." "I know," I say, and the rest of the trip home is made in silence. When I get home, the Loric chest is sitting on the kitchen table. It's the size of a microwave oven, almost perfectly square, 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet. Excitement shoots through me. I walk up to it and grab the lock in my hand. I think I'm more excited about learning how this is unlocked than about what's actually in it, I say. "Really? Well, I can show you how it's unlocked and then we can just relock it and forget about what's inside." I smile at him. "Let's not be rash. Come on. What's inside?" "It's your inheritance." "What do you mean?" My inheritance. It's what's given to each guard at birth to be used by his or her keeper when the guard is coming into his or her legacy. I nod with exhilaration. So what's in it? Your inheritance. His coy response frustrates me. I pick up the lock and try to force it open as I've always tried doing. Of course it doesn't budge. You can't open it without me, and I can't open it without you, Henri says. Well, how do we open it? There isn't a keyhole. By will. Oh, come on, Henry. Quit being secretive. He takes the lock from me. The lock only opens when we're together, and only after your first legacy appears. He walks to the front door and sticks his head out, then he closes and locks it. He walks back. Press your palm against the side of the lock, he says, and I do. It's warm, I say. Good. That means you're ready. Now what? He presses his palm against the other side of the lock and interlocks his fingers with mine. A second passes. The lock snaps open. Amazing. I say. It's protected by a Lorien charm, just like you are. It can't be broken. You could run over it with a steamroller and it wouldn't even be dented. Only the two of us can open it together. Unless I die, then you can open it yourself. Well, I say, I hope that doesn't happen. I try to lift the top of the box, but Henri reaches over and stops me. Not yet, he says. There are things in here you aren't ready to see. Go sit on the couch. Henry, come on. Just trust me, he says. I shake my head and sit down. He opens the box and removes a rock that is probably 6 inches long, 2 inches thick. He relocks the box, then brings the rock over to me. It is perfectly smooth and oblong, clear on the outside but cloudy in the center. What is it? I ask. A Lorien crystal. What's it for? Hold it, he says, handing it to me. The second my hands come into contact with it, both lights snap on in my palms. They are even brighter than the day before. The rock begins to warm. I hold it up to look more closely at it. The cloudy mass in the center is swirling, turning in on itself like a wave. I can also feel the pendant around my neck heating up. I'm thrilled by all this new development. My whole life has been spent impatiently waiting for my powers to arrive. Sure, there were times when I hoped they never would, mainly so we could finally settle somewhere and live a normal life, but for now, holding a crystal that contains what looks like a ball of smoke in its center, and knowing my hands are resistant to heat and fire, and that more legacies are on the way that will then be followed by my major power, the power that will allow me to fight well, it's all pretty cool and exciting. I can't wipe the smile from my face. What is happening to it? It's tied to your legacy. Your touch activates it. If you weren't developing lumen, then the crystal itself would light up the way your hands are. Instead it's the other way around. I stare at the crystal, watching the smoke circle and glow. Shall we start? Henri asks. I nod my head rapidly. Hell, yes. The day has turned cold. The house is silent aside from the occasional gust of wind rattling the windows. I lie on my back on top of the wooden coffee table. My hands dangle over the sides. At some point Henry will build a fire beneath them both. My breathing is slow and steady, as Henry has instructed. You have to keep your eyes closed, he says. Just listen to the wind. There might be a slight burning in your arms when I drag the crystal up them. Ignore it as best as you can. I listen to the wind blow through the trees outside. I can somehow feel them sway and bend. Henry begins with my right hand. He presses the crystal against the back of it, then pushes it up my wrist and onto my forearm. There is a burn as he has predicted, but not enough of one to make me pull my arm free. Let your mind drift, John. Go where you need to go. I don't know what he's talking about, but I try to clear my mind and breathe slowly. All at once I feel myself drift away. From somewhere I can feel the sun's warmth upon my face, and a wind far warmer than what is blowing beyond our walls. When I open my eyes, I'm no longer in Ohio. I'm above a vast expanse of treetops, nothing but jungle as far as I can see. Blue sky, the sun beating down, a sun almost double the size of Earth's. A warm, soft wind blows through my hair. Down below, rivers forge deep ravines that cut through the greenery. I am floating above one of them. Animals of all shapes and sizes, some long and slender, some with short arms and stout bodies, some with hair and some with dark-colored skin that looks rough to the touch, are drinking from the cool waters at the river's bank. There is a bend in the horizon line far off in the distance, and I know that I am on Lorien. It's a planet 10 times smaller than Earth, and it's possible to see the curve of its surface when looking from far enough away. Somehow I'm able to fly. I rush up and twist in the air, then torpedo down in speed along the river's surface. The animals lift their heads and watch with curiosity, but not with fear. Lorien in its prime, covered with growth, inhabited by animals. In a way, it looks like what I imagine Earth looked like millions of years ago, when the land ruled the lives of its creatures, before humans arrived and started ruling the land. Lorien in its prime, I know that it no longer looks like this today. I must be living a memory. Surely it isn't my own? And then the day skips ahead to darkness. Off in the distance a great display of fireworks begins, rising high in the sky and exploding into shapes of animals and trees, with the dark sky and the moons and a million stars serving as a brilliant backdrop. I can feel their desperation, I hear from somewhere. I turn and look around me. There is nobody there. They know where one of the others is, but the charm still holds. They can't touch her until they've killed you first. But they continue to track her. I fly up high, then dip low, seeking the source of the voice. Where is it coming from? Now is when we have to be most cautious. Now is when we have to stay ahead of them. I push forward towards the fireworks. The voice unnerves me. Perhaps the loud booms will drown it out. They had hoped to kill us all well before your legacies developed. But we've kept hidden. We have to stay calm. The first 3 panicked. The first 3 are dead. We have to stay smart and cautious. When we panic is when mistakes are made. They know it will only get harder for them the more developed the rest of you are, and when you are all fully developed, their war will be waged. We will hit back and seek our revenge, and they know it. I see the bombs fall from miles above Lorien's surface. Explosions shake the ground and the air, screams carry on the wind, bursts of fire sweep across the land and the trees. The forest burns. There must be 1,000 different aircraft, all dropping from high in the sky to land on Lorien. Mogadorian soldiers pour out, carrying guns and grenades that hold powers far greater than what is used in warfare here. They are taller than we are, and still look similar except in the face. They have no pupils and their irises are a deep magenta color, some of them black. Dark, heavy circles rim their eyes and there's a pallor to their skin, an almost discolored, bruised quality to it. Their teeth glint between lips that never seem to close, teeth that look filed, coming to an unnatural point. The beasts of Mogador come off the plains close behind, the same cold look in their eyes. Some of them are as big as houses, razor teeth showing, roaring so loud that it hurts my ears. We got careless, John. That is how we were defeated so easily, he says. I know now that the voice I'm hearing is Henry's. But he is nowhere to be seen, and I can't take my eyes off the killing and the destruction below me to look for him. People are running everywhere, fighting back. As many Mogadorians as Loric are being killed. But the Loric are losing the battle against the beasts, which are killing our people by the dozens, breathing fire, gnashing teeth, viciously swinging arms and tails. Time is speeding along, going much faster than normal. How much has passed? An hour? 2? The guard lead the fight, their legacies on full display. Some are flying, some able to run so fast that they become a blur, and some disappear entirely. Lasers shoot from hands, bodies become engulfed in flames, storm clouds are brewed coupled with harsh winds above those able to control the weather. But they are still losing. They are outnumbered 500 to 1. Their powers are not enough. Our guard had dropped. The Mogadorians had planned well, picking that exact moment when they knew we were at our most vulnerable, when the planet's elders were gone. Pittacus Law, the greatest of them, their leader, had assembled them before the attack. Nobody knows what happened to them, or where they went, or if they are even still alive. Perhaps the Mogadorians took them out first, and once the elders were out of the way, that is when they attacked. All we really know is that there was a column of shimmering white light that shot into the sky as far as anyone could see on the day the elders assembled. It lasted the entire day, then vanished. We, as a people, should have recognized it as a sign that something was amiss, but we didn't. We have no one to blame but ourselves for what happened. We were lucky to get anyone off the planet, much less 9 young guard who might someday continue the fight, and keep our race alive. Off in the distance a ship shoots high and fast into the air, a blue stream following behind it. I watch it from my vantage point in the sky until it disappears. There is something familiar about it. And then it dawns on me, I am in that ship, and Henri is, too. It's the ship carrying us to Earth. The Lorien must have known they were beaten. Why else would they send us away? Useless slaughter. That is how it all looks to me. I land on the ground and walk through a ball of fire. Rage sweeps through me. Men and women are dying, guard and Sipan, along with defenseless children. How can this be tolerated? How can the hearts of the Mogadorians be so hardened as to do all this? And why was I spared? I lunge at a nearby soldier but go straight through him and fall down. Everything I am witnessing has already happened. I'm a spectator of our own demise and there's nothing I can do. I turn around and face a beast that must be 40 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with red eyes and horns 20 feet in length. Drool falls from its long, sharp teeth. It lets out a roar, and then lunges. It passes throughout me but takes out dozens of Lorien around me. Just like that, every one of them gone. And the beast keeps going, taking out more Lorien. Through the scene of destruction I hear a scratching noise, something separate from the carnage on Lorien. I am drifting away, or drifting back. 2 hands press down upon my shoulders. My eyes snap open and I'm back in our home in Ohio. My arms are dangling over the coffee table. Inches below them are 2 cauldrons of fire, and both of my hands and wrists are completely submerged in the flames. I don't feel the effects at all. Henry stands over me. The scratching I heard a minute ago is coming from the front porch. "What is that?" I whisper, sitting up. "I don't know," he says. We are both silent, straining to listen. 3 more scratches at the door. Henry looks down at me. "There's somebody out there," he says. I look at the clock on the wall. Nearly an hour has passed. I'm sweating, out of breath, unsettled by the scenes of slaughter I just witnessed. For the first time in my life I truly understand what happened on Lorien. Before tonight the events were just part of another story, not all that different from the many I have read in books. But now I have seen the blood, the tears, the dead. I have seen the destruction. It's a part of who I am. Outside, darkness has set in. 3 more scratches at the door, a low groan. We both jump. I immediately think of the low groans I heard coming from the beasts. Henry rushes into the kitchen and grabs a knife from the drawer beside the sink. "Get behind the couch." "What? Why?" "Because I said so." "You think that little knife is going to take down a Mogadorian?" "If I hit them straight in the heart it will. Now get down." I scramble off the coffee table and crouch behind the sofa. The 2 cauldrons of fire are still going, faint visions of Lorien still moving through my mind. An impatient growl comes from the other side of the front door. There is no mistaking that somebody, or something, is out there. My heart races. Keep down, Henry says. I lift my head so that I can peer over the back of the couch. All that blood, I think. Surely they knew they were outmatched. But they fought to the end anyway, dying to save each other, dying to save Lorien. Henry grips the knife tightly. He slowly reaches for the brass knob. Anger sweeps through me. I hope it is one of them. Let a Mogadorian come through that door. He'll meet his match. There's no way I'm staying behind this couch. I reach over and grab one of the cauldrons, thrust my hand into it and pull out a burning piece of wood with a pointed end. It's cool to the touch, but the fire burns on, sweeping over and around my hand. I hold the piece of wood like a dagger. Let them come, I think. There will be no more running. Henry looks over at me, takes a deep breath and rips the front door open. End of chapter 8. Chapter 9. Every muscle in my body is flexed, everything tense. Henry jumps through the doorway and I'm ready to follow. I can feel the thud 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 in my chest. My fingers are white-knuckled around the piece of wood still burning. A gust of wind bursts through the door and the fire dances in my hand and crawls up my wrist. No one is there. All at once Henry's body relaxes and he chuckles, looking down at his feet. There, looking up at Henry through the tops of his eyes, is the same beagle I saw yesterday at school. The dog wags his tail and paws at the ground. Henry reaches down and pets him, then the dog pushes past and trots into the house with his tongue dangling. What's he doing here? I ask. You know this dog? I saw him at school. He was following me around yesterday after you dropped me off. I put the piece of wood back and wipe my hand on my jeans, leaving a trail of black ash down the front. The dog sits at my feet and looks up expectantly, his tail thumping against the hardwood floor. I sit on the couch and watch both fires burn. Now that the excitement of the situation is over, my mind goes back to what I just saw in my vision. I can still hear the screams in my ears, still see the way the blood shimmered in the grass in the moonlight, still see the bodies and fallen trees, the red glow in the eyes of the beasts of Mogador and the terror in the eyes of the Lorik. I look at Henry. I saw what happened. At least the beginning of it. He nods. I thought you might. I could hear your voice. Were you talking to me? Yes. I don't understand, I say. It was a massacre. There was too much hatred for them to only be interested in our resources. There was more to it than that. Henry sighs and sits on the coffee table across from me. The dog jumps into my lap. I pet him. He's filthy, his coat stiff and oily under my hand. There is a tag in the shape of a football attached to the front of his collar. It's an old tag, most of the brown paint worn away. I take it in my hand, the number 19 on one side, the name Bernie Koza on the other. Bernie Koza, I say. The dog wags his tail. I guess that's his name, same as the dude in the poster on my wall. Popular guy around here, I guess. I run my hand down his back. He doesn't seem like he has a home, I say. And he's hungry. Somehow I can tell. Henry nods. He looks down at Bernie Koza. The dog stretches out, rests his chin on his paws, and closes his eyes. I flip open the lighter and hold the flame over my fingers, then my palm, then run it up the underside of my arm. Only when the flame is an inch or two away from my elbow do I feel the burn. Whatever Henry has done has worked, and my resistance has spread. I wonder how long it will take until all of me becomes resistant. So what happened? I ask. Henry takes a deep breath. I've had those visions, too. So real it's like you're there. I never realized how bad it all was. I mean, I know you had told me, but I didn't truly understand it until I saw it with my own eyes. The Mogadorians are different than we are, secretive and manipulative, untrusting of almost everything. They have certain powers, but they're not powers like ours. They are gregarious and thrive in crowded cities. The more densely populated, the better. That is why you and I stay out of cities now, even when living in one might make it easier to blend in. It would make it a hell of a lot easier for them to blend in as well. About 100 years ago Mogador began to die, much like Lorien did 25,000 years before that. They didn't respond the way we did, though, didn't understand it the way the human population is beginning to now. They ignored it. They killed their oceans and flooded their rivers and lakes with waste and sewage to keep adding to their cities. The vegetation started to die, which caused the herbivores to die, and then the carnivores weren't far behind. They knew they had to do something drastic. Henry closes his eyes, remains silent for a full minute. Do you know the closest life-sustaining planet to Mogador? He finally asks. Yes, it's Lorien. Or was, I guess. Henry nods. Yes, it is Lorien. And I'm sure you know now that it was our resources they were after. I nod. Pittacus lifts his head and lets out a deep yawn. Henri heats a cooked chicken breast in the microwave, cuts it into strips, then carries the plate back to the couch and sets it in front of the dog. He eats with ferocity, as though he hasn't eaten in days. There are a large number of Mogadorians on Earth, Henry continues. I don't know how many are here, but I can feel them when I sleep. Sometimes I can see them in my dreams. I can never tell where they are, or what they are saying. But I see them. And I don't think the 6 of you are the only reason there are so many of them here. What do you mean? Why else would they be here? Henry looks me in the eye. Do you know what the second closest life-sustaining planet is to Mogador? I nod. It's Earth, isn't it? Mogador is double the size of Lorien, but Earth is 5 times the size of Mogador. In terms of defense, Earth is better prepared for an offensive because of its size. The Mogadorians will need to understand this planet better before they can attack. I can't necessarily tell you how we were defeated so easily because there's much of it I still don't understand. But I can say for sure that part of it was a combination of their knowledge of our planet and our people, and the fact that we had no defense other than our intelligence and the guards' legacies. Say what you will about the Mogadorians, but they are brilliant strategists when it comes to war. We sit through another silence, the wind still roaring outside. I don't think they're interested in taking Earth's resources, Henry says. I sigh and look up at him. Why not? Mogador is still dying. Even though they've patched the more pressing matters, the planet's death is inevitable, and they know it. I think they're planning to kill the humans. I think they want to make Earth their permanent home. I bathe Pittacus after dinner, using shampoo and conditioner. I brush him with an old comb left in one of the drawers from the last tenant. He looks and smells much better, but his collar still stinks. I throw it away. Before going to bed I hold open the front door for him, but he isn't interested in going back outside. Instead he lies down on the floor and rests his chin on his front paws. I can feel his desire to stay in the house with us. I wonder if he can feel my desire for the same. I think we have a new pet, Henry says. I smile. As soon as I saw him earlier I was hoping Henri would let me keep him. Looks like it, I say. A half hour later I crawl into bed and Pittacus jumps up with me and curls into a ball at my feet. He is snoring within minutes. I lie on my back for a while, staring into the darkness, a million different thoughts swimming in my head. Images from the war, the greedy, hungry look of the Mogadorians. The angry, hard look of the beasts. The death and the blood. I think of the beauty of Lorien. Will it again sustain life? Or will Henry and I go on waiting here on Earth forever? I try to push the thoughts and images from my mind, but they don't stay gone for very long. I get up and pace for a while. Pittacus lifts his head and watches me, but then drops it and falls back to sleep. I sigh, grab my phone from the nightstand and go through it to make sure Mark James didn't mess with anything. Henry's number is still there, but it is no longer the only entry. Another number, listed under the name of Sarah Hart, has been added. After the last bell rang, and before coming to my locker, Sarah added her number to my phone. I close the phone, set it on the nightstand, and smile. 2 minutes pass and I check my phone again to make sure I wasn't seeing things. I wasn't. I snap it shut and set it down, only to lift it again 5 minutes later just to look at her number again. I don't know how long it takes to fall asleep, but I eventually do. When I wake in the morning, my phone is still in my hand, resting against my chest. Chapter 10. Bernie Koza is scratching at my bedroom door when I wake. I let him outside. He patrols the yard, rushing along with his nose to the ground. Once he's covered all 4 corners, he bolts across the yard and disappears into the woods. I close the door and jump into the shower. I walk out 10 minutes later and he's back inside, sitting on the couch. His tail wags when he sees me. "You let him in?" I ask Henry, who is at the kitchen table with his laptop open and 4 newspapers stacked in front of him. "Yes." After a quick breakfast, we head out. Bernie Koza rushes ahead of us, then stops and sits looking up at the passenger door of the truck. "That's kind of weird, don't you think?" I say. Henry shrugs. Apparently he's no stranger to car rides. "Let him in." I open the door and he jumps in. He sits in the middle seat with his tongue dangling. When we pull out of the driveway, he moves into my lap and paws at the window. I roll it down and he sticks half his body out, mouth still open, the wind flapping his ears. 3 miles later, Henry pulls into the school. I open the door and Bernie Koza jumps out ahead of me. I lift him back into the truck but he jumps right back out. I lift him back in again and have to block him from jumping out while I close the truck door. He stands on his hind legs with his front paws on the ledge of the door, the window still down. I pat him on the head. "Have your gloves?" Henry asks. "Yep." "Phone?" "Yep." "How do you feel?" "I feel good," I say. "Okay. Call me if you have any sort of trouble." He pulls away and Bernie Koza watches from the back window until the truck disappears around the turn. I feel a similar nervousness as I did the day before, but for different reasons. Part of me wants to see Sarah right away, though part of me hopes that I don't see her at all. I'm not sure what I'll say to her. What if I can't think of anything at all and stand there looking foolish? What if she's with Mark when I see her? Should I acknowledge her and risk another confrontation, or just walk by and pretend that I don't see either of them? At the very least I'll see them both in second period. There's no getting around that. I head to my locker. My bag is filled with books I was supposed to read the night before but never opened. Too many thoughts and images running through my head. They haven't gone away and it's hard to imagine they ever will. It was all so different from what I expected. Death isn't like what they show you in the movies. The sounds, the looks, the smells. So different. At my locker I notice immediately that something's off. The metal handle is covered with dirt, or what looks like dirt. I'm not sure if I should open it, but then I take a deep breath and force the handle up. The locker is half filled with manure and as I swing the door open, much of it comes pouring out onto the floor, covering my shoes. The smell is horrendous. I slam the door shut. Sam Good was standing behind it and his sudden appearance from out of nowhere startles me. He is looking forlorn, wearing a white NASA t-shirt only slightly different from the one he wore yesterday. "Hi, Sam," I say. He looks down at the pile of manure on the floor, then back at me. "You, too?" I ask. He nods. "I'm going to the principal's office. Do you want to come?" He shakes his head, then turns and walks away without saying a word. I walk to Mr. Harris's office, knock on his door, then enter without waiting for his reply. He is sitting behind his desk, wearing a tie that is tiled with the school mascot, no less than 20 tiny pirate heads scattered across the front of it. He smiles proudly at me. "It's a big day, John," he says. I don't know what he is talking about. The reporters from the Gazette should be here within the hour. Front page. Then I remember Mark James's big interview with the local paper. "You must be very proud," I say. "I'm proud of each and every one of Paradise's students." The smile doesn't leave his face. He leans back in his chair, locks his fingers together, and rests his hands on his stomach. "What can I do for you?" "I just wanted to let you know that my locker was filled with manure this morning." "What do you mean filled?" "I mean the whole thing was full of manure." "With manure?" he asks confusedly. "Yes." He laughs. I'm taken aback by his total lack of regard, and anger surges through me. My face is warm. "I wanted to let you know so it could be cleaned. Sam Good's locker is filled with it, too." He sighs and shakes his head. "I'll send Mr. Hobbs, the janitor, down immediately and we'll make a full investigation. We both know who did it, Mr. Harris." He flashes a patronizing grin at me. "I'll handle the investigation, Mr. Smith." There's no point in saying anything further, so I walk out of his office and head to the bathroom to run cold water over my hands and face. I have to calm down. I don't want to have to wear the gloves again today. Maybe I should do nothing at all, just let it slide. Will that end it? And besides, what other choice is there? I'm outmatched and my only ally is £100 sophomore with a penchant for the extraterrestrial. Maybe that isn't the whole truth, maybe I have another ally in Sarah Hart. I look down. My hands are fine, no glow. I walk out of the bathroom. The janitor is already sweeping the manure from my locker, lifting out books and placing them in the trash. I walk past him and into the classroom and wait for class to start. Rules of grammar are discussed, the main topic being the difference between a gerund and a verb, and why a gerund is not a verb. I pay closer attention than I did the day before, but as the end of the period nears I start to get nervous about the next class. But not because I might see Mark. Because I might see Sarah. Will she smile at me again today? I think it'll be best to arrive before she does so I can find my seat and watch her walk in. That way I can see if she says hello to me first. When the bell rings, I dash out of class and rush down the hall. I'm the first one to enter astronomy. The classroom fills and Sam sits beside me again. Just before the bell rings, Sarah and Mark enter together. She's dressed in a white button-up shirt and black pants. She smiles at me before sitting down. I smile back. Mark doesn't look my way at all. I can still smell the manure on my shoes, or maybe the odor is coming from Sam's. He pulls a pamphlet from his bag with the title "They Walk Among Us" on the cover. It looks as though it was printed in somebody's basement. Sam flips to an article in the center and starts reading intently. I look at Sarah 4 desks in front of me, at her hair pulled back in a ponytail. I can see the nape of her slender neck. She crosses her legs and sits straight in her chair. I wish I was sitting beside her, that I could reach over and take her hand in mine. I wish it were 8th period. Already. I wonder if I'll be her partner in home econ again. Mrs. Burton begins lecturing. She's still on the topic of Saturn. Sam takes out a sheet of paper and begins scribbling wildly, pausing at times to consult an article in the magazine he has opened beside him. I look over his shoulder and read the title, "Entire Montana Town Abducted by Aliens." Before last night I would have never pondered such a theory. But Henry believes the Mogadorians are plotting to take over Earth, and I must admit, even though the theory in Sam's publication is ludicrous, at its most basic level there might be something there. I know for a fact that the Lorien have visited Earth many times over the life of this planet. We watched Earth develop, watched it through the times of growth and abundance when everything moved, and through the times of ice and snow when nothing did. We helped the humans, taught them to make fire, gave them the tools to develop speech and language, which is why our language is so similar to the languages of Earth. And even though we never abducted humans, that doesn't mean it's never been done. I look at Sam. I've never met somebody with a fascination in aliens to the point of reading and taking notes on conspiracy theories. Just then the door opens and Mr. Harris sticks his smiling face in. "Sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Burton. I'm going to have to snag Mark from you. The Gazette reporters are here to interview him for the paper," he says loudly enough so everyone in the class can hear. Mark stands, grabs his bag and casually strolls out of the room. From the doorway I see Mr. Harris pat him on the back. Then I look back at Sarah, wishing I could sit in the empty seat beside her. Fourth period is physical education. Sam is in my class. After changing we sit beside each other on the gymnasium floor. He is wearing tennis shoes, shorts, a t-shirt 2 or 3 sizes too large. He looks like a stork, all knees and elbows, somewhat lanky even though he's short. The gym teacher, Mr. Wallace, stands firmly in front of us, his feet shoulder-width apart, his hands clenched into fists on his hips. "All right, guys, listen up. This is probably the last chance we'll get to work outdoors, so make it count. 1 mile run, as hard as you can. Your times will be noted and saved for when we run the mile again in the spring. So run hard." The outside track is made of synthetic rubber. It circles around the football field, and beyond it are some woods that I imagine might lead to our house, but I'm not sure. The wind is cool and goosebumps traverse the length of Sam's arms. He tries to rub them away. "Have you run this before?" I ask. Sam nods. "We ran it the second week of class." "What was your time?" 9 minutes and 54 seconds. I look at him. I thought skinny kids are supposed to be fast. "Shut up," he says. I run side by side with Sam towards the back of the crowd. 4 laps. That is how many times I must circle the track to have run a mile. Halfway round I begin to pull away from Sam. I wonder how fast I could run a mile if I really tried. 2 minutes, maybe 1, maybe less. The exercise feels great, and without paying much attention, I pass the lead runner. Then I slow and feign exhaustion. When I do I see a brown and white blur come dashing out of the bushes by the entrance of the grandstand and head straight towards me. My mind is playing tricks on me, I think. I look away and keep running. I pass the teacher. He is holding a stopwatch. He yells words of encouragement but he is looking behind me, away from the track. I follow his eyes. They are fixated on the brown and white blur. It is still coming straight for me and all at once the images from the day before come rushing back. The Mogadorian beasts. There were small ones too, with teeth that glinted in the light like razor blades, fast creatures intent on killing. I start sprinting. I run halfway round the track in a dead sprint before I turn back around. There is nothing behind me. I have outrun it. 20 seconds have passed. Then I turn back around and the thing is right in front of me. It must have cut across the field. I stop dead in my tracks and my perspective corrects itself. It's Bernie Kosar. He's sitting in the middle of the track with his tongue dangling, tail wagging. "Bernie Kosar!" I yell. "You scared the hell out of me." I resume running at a slow pace and Bernie Kosar runs alongside me. I hope nobody noticed how fast I ran. Then I stop and bend over as though I have cramps and can't catch my breath. I walk for a bit. Then I jog a little. Before I finish the second lap 2 people have passed me. "Smith. What happened?" "You were dusting everyone." Mr. Wallace yells when I run by him. I breathe heavily, for show. "I have asthma," I say. He shakes his head in disapproval. And here I thought I had this year's Ohio State track champion in my class. I shrug and keep going, stopping every so often to walk. Bernie Koza stays with me, sometimes walking, sometimes trotting. When I start the last lap, Sam catches up to me and we run together. His face is bright red. "So what were you reading in astronomy today?" I ask. "An entire Montana town abducted by aliens?" He grins at me. "Yeah, that's the theory," he says somewhat shyly, as though embarrassed. "Why would an entire town be abducted?" Sam shrugs, doesn't answer. "No, really?" I ask. "Do you really want to know?" "Of course." "Well, the theory is that the government has been allowing alien abductions in exchange for technology." "Really? What kind of technology?" I ask. "Like chips for supercomputers and formulas for more bombs and green technologies. Stuff like that." "Green technology for live specimens? Weird. Why do aliens want to abduct humans? So they can study us? But why? I mean, what reason could they possibly have? So that when Armageddon comes they'll know our weaknesses and be able to easily defeat us by exposing them." I'm kind of taken aback by his answer, but only because of the scene still playing in my head from the night before, remembering the weapons I saw the Mogadorians use, and the massive beasts. Wouldn't it be easy for them if they already have bombs and technologies far superior to our own? Well, some people seem to think that they're hoping we'll kill ourselves first. I look at Sam. He is smiling at me, trying to decide whether I'm taking the conversation seriously. Why would they want us to kill ourselves first? What is their incentive? Because they're jealous. Jealous of us? Why? Because of our rugged good looks. Sam laughs. Something like that. I nod. We run in silence for a minute and I can tell Sam is having a tough time, breathing heavily. "How did you get interested in all this?" He shrugs. "It's just a hobby," he says, though I get the distinct feeling that he's keeping something from me. We finish the mile at 8 minutes 59 seconds, better than the last time Sam ran it. Bernie Koza follows the class back to the school. The others pet him, and when we walk in he tries to come in with us. I don't know how he knew where I was. Could he have memorized the way to the school this morning on the ride in? The thought seems ridiculous. He stays at the door. I walk to the locker room with Sam and the second he catches his breath he rattles off a ton of other conspiracy theories, one right after another, most of which are laughable. I like him, and find him amusing, but sometimes I wish he would stop talking. When home EC begins, Sarah isn't in class. Mrs. Benchoff gives instruction for the first 10 minutes and then we head to the kitchen. I enter the station alone, resigned to the fact that I'll be cooking alone today, and as soon as that thought occurs to me, Sarah walks in. "Did I miss anything good?" she asks. "About 10 minutes of quality time with me," I say with a smile. She laughs. "I heard about your locker this morning." "I'm sorry." "You put them in your?" I ask. She laughs again. "No, of course not. But I know they're picking on you because of me. They're just lucky I didn't use my superpowers and throw them into the next county." She playfully grabs my biceps. "Right. These huge muscles. Your superpowers. Boy, they are lucky." Our project for the day is to make blueberry cupcakes. As we start mixing the batter, Sarah begins telling me about her history with Mark. They dated for 2 years, but the longer they were together, the more she drifted from her parents and her friends. She was Mark's girlfriend, nothing else. She knew she had started to change, to adopt some of his attitudes towards people, being mean and judgmental, thinking she was better than them. She also started drinking and her grades slipped. At the end of the last school year, her parents sent her to live with her aunt in Colorado for the summer. When she got there, she started taking long hikes in the mountains, taking pictures of the scenery with her aunt's camera. She fell in love with photography and had the best summer ever, realizing there was far more to life than being a cheerleader and dating the quarterback of the football team. When she got home she broke up with Mark and quit cheerleading, and made a vow that she was going to be good and kind to everyone. Mark hasn't gotten over it. She says he still considers her his girlfriend, and believes she's going to come back to him. She says the only thing she misses about him are his dogs, which she hung out with whenever she was at his house. I then tell her about Bernie Koza, and how he showed up at our doorstep unexpectedly after that first morning at the school. We work as we talk. At one point I reach into the oven without the oven mitts and pull out the cupcake pan. She sees me do it and asks if I'm okay, and I pretend to be hurt, shake my hand as if it's burned, though I don't actually feel a thing. We go to the sink and Sarah runs lukewarm water to help with the burn that isn't there. When she sees my hand, I just shrug. As we're frosting the cupcakes, she asks about my phone, and tells me she noticed there was only one number in it. I tell her it's Henry's number, that I lost my old phone with all of my contacts. She asks if I left a girlfriend behind when we moved. I say no, and she smiles, which just about ruins me. Before class ends, she tells me about the upcoming Halloween festival in town, and says she hopes to see me there, that maybe we can hang out. I say yeah, that would be great. And pretend to be cool. Even though I'm flying inside. End of chapter 10.